Mark and Janet here, sitting right here in front. And let us say Mark turn around to Janet and whispers in her ear, I love you, darling. They're doing it right now, actually. All right? So, I love you, darling. And it is wonderful, isn't it? Mark is whispering into his wife's ear, I love you, darling. Now, supposing you sit one row behind them, all right? And you hear this, and you say, wow, Mark just told me how much he loves me. I'm his darling. What do you think about that statement? The woman who sat behind Janet says, Mark just told me how much he loves me, and I'm his darling. And she goes around and she says to her neighbor, did you hear that? Mark just called me his darling. He loves me. I wonder what we could be doing after church. Whoa, is correct. And you think this is crazy, but we do this many times from the Bible. What am I talking about? All right, so let's analyze the situation. Suppose we read something in the Bible, all right, and Jesus is saying something. It's like Mark turning to his wife and whispering something. Are you all with me so far? So Jesus is saying something. We read it, we heard it, we read it, and we say, look, Jesus is telling me something. And if Jesus is telling me something, I would like to do it. Because it's Jesus. He's my love. He loves me first, and that's why I love him. And if Jesus is talking something to me, saying something to me in my ear, I would love to do it. All right? So let's take a simple example from Luke chapter 14, verse 12. All right? And let's just read it by itself, ignoring certain parts, but let's just read it, all right? Then said he also to him that bade him. So this is Jesus speaking, all right? Never mind about anything else. This is Jesus. Red letter edition Bible, you have all the words of Jesus in red. Okay? So it says here, it starts here. When you make a dinner or a supper, okay? And later on it says it's a feast. When you, who is you? Me, all right? So it's like Jesus standing here and saying to you, when you make a feast, when you make a dinner, when you make a supper, when you put on a show, when you do this party, this is what you do. Do not call your friends. Ha! Do not call your friends. Call not your friends, nor your brothers or your relatives, that's your kinsmen, nor your rich neighbors. So when you put on a party, when you do dinner, when you do supper, when you do something like that, do not invite your friends, your relatives, your brothers or sisters, your family. Do not invite any of them. Now, suppose you hear this, but once again, all right, this is Jesus speaking, right? So now what do? Jesus says when you have dinner, when you have a feast, when you are going to eat, when you prepare a whole meal, don't invite your friends. Well, immediately there's a problem, right? Because every time you put on a party, Sarah, who do you invite? Come on. Who do you invite when you put you're cooking for hours, you cook for days, all so many of you here know exactly what I mean because you love to cook. You're in the kitchen for a couple of days making those nice sauces, putting the turkey in the oven, and it takes hours to do those sort of things. And the instruction here by Jesus is, after you do all that work, all that cleaning, all that preparation, 2-3 days of work, don't invite your friends or family. Let's jump to the next slide. Verse 13. You see how I'm leaving out things here? Because there's more to the verse, right? But I'm just leaving it out because, hey, I don't know what it says, so I don't care. Verse 13. But when you make a feast, okay, call the what? The poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind. Verse 14. And you shall be blessed. You shall be blessed. Whoa, I like that part, you say to yourself. I like the blessing part. Blah, blah, blah. Well, never mind about that one. For you shall be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. One day, you will be recompensed. That means Jesus will reward you. One day, in heaven. So let's get this whole story straight again. So let us say, you who love Jesus, heard these words. Okay, so what are the words again? When you make a feast, when you have slave for days, do not call your brothers, your relatives, or friends to this party. Who do you call? The poor, the maimed, the lame, and the blind. And then they say, well, why do I have to call these people? Why? Well, let's get in the homeless people, the poor, well, the maimed. You do not know so many people who are maimed, so you cannot call all of them. The lame, you may know one of them. The blind, you may not know anybody who's blind. Or you may know one or two. But the poor, you can find. All right? So many people have built a whole theology based upon this. But it's for their own self-interest. So, you make the feast, purposefully exclude everybody that you know, and you call in all those people who are poor and homeless. So you get them in. So you make this feast and you feed them. Now, of course, there's lots of them. So you don't have so much money. So you try to, make do. What is cheap and which you can feed 100, 200 people? Oh, maybe hot dogs. All right? So you buy packets and packets of those hot dogs from Sam's Club, by the box. And you open up the box, and it cannot be too good quality because those good quality ones with full of beef and those really meaty hot dogs, they're very expensive. They're more expensive than the original meat. So you buy the one which looks good, but if you look at it, it's pink in color. It's the color of it is pink. Why is it pink in color? Additives, of course. It's the what do they call it? It's what they call pink slime, right? So it's a combination of every part of throwaway meat from the animal, and then you add the additives and the color, and it becomes pink in color, so it looks good. Hey, it's cheap, and you're going to feed people like the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind. Hey, they cannot see what they're eating anyway, right? So it doesn't really matter. Why do they care, But there's a self-interest here. Invite 200 of them into your home, into your special meeting place and feed them. And they eat, and you say, man, look at this. Verse 14. This is Jesus saying, and you, that's me, you shall be blessed. You shall be blessed. Man, I feel so good. I feed them hot dogs. And one day when I meet Jesus, Jesus is going to reward me for feeding them hot dogs. Or maybe Jesus, I'll get to eat steak forever in heaven because I fed some people here hot dogs. And these people, they are small people, they are not rich people, they are not famous people. But man, Jesus will make me the big kahuna, the big guy in heaven because I did this thing. How many people do you know feeding 200 homeless people per week? I'm the good one. You see, I am the one who did the work. Okay? Jesus said it. I did it. I'm going to get rewarded one day. Because that's what it says. They will be recompensed, which is me. I will be recompensed. I will be rewarded at the resurrection of the just. When the just, which is who I am, stands before Jesus, Jesus will say, I remember you. You fed the 200 people every week at your home. You fed the people, and now here is your reward. You are just rubbing your hands in glee, wow. Because Jesus is not going to reward you with hot dogs, you see. I mean, that's God himself. He's going to multiply your giving by thousands of times. So you do this because you believe that Jesus said it. And of course, there's a self-interest there. But hey, at the end, the justification is that Jesus asked you to do it, and you did it. And many people say that's how we read the Bible. Now, do you think there's something wrong with this? Do you think there's something wrong? It all sounds good. There's nothing wrong in feeding the homeless. I've done this before. I've done soup kitchens. I've done all of that before. There's nothing wrong with this. But the way it's read, the way it's taken out of context is completely unacceptable. All right? So let's go back and see what Jesus is actually talking about. Like I said, if Mark were to tell Janet, I love you, darling, you cannot claim that for yourself. It is Mark talking to Janet. All right? It is not for you. There is another explanation with this scripture. Are you all with me so far? All right. I mean, you probably saw through it all already, but I'm trying to tell you how people read scripture, how people hear things, and then they say, well, that's the truth. That's what Jesus said. That's why I do this. Disregarding everything else and who Jesus is talking to. All right. So let's get back to chapter 14. Let's start from verse 1 now. All right. And it came to pass, as he went into the house. So Jesus has entered into the house of one of the chief Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath day that they watch him. So where is Jesus? Now we are setting the context up. All right? Why did Jesus say those words? Who is he talking to? Are you all with me so far? You see, I'm trying to teach you or to share with you the proper way to read the Bible. If I just pull out those few verses as I read to you just now and ignoring some parts of the verse as well, there will be a completely different conclusion. And you conclude something which is not there. But you read into it because you have taken out things out of context. All right? So Jesus went into one of the chief Pharisees' house to eat bread, and it was the Sabbath day. and they watch him. Who do you think this they were? There's a chief Pharisee. That means there were a whole bunch of other Pharisees. There were a whole lot of Jewish religious leaders there, and they're all watching Jesus. What is Jesus going to do? What is Jesus going to say? All right, let's see what this Jesus is going to do. And behold, verse 2, there was a certain man before him which had the dropsy. And Jesus answered, saying unto the lawyers and Pharisees. All right, now we are given more clues as to who were there. Lawyers, Pharisees, saying, okay, look at who Jesus is talking to. Who do you think Jesus is talking to? The Pharisees and the lawyers. The Pharisees and the lawyers, they love their standing in the community. They were interpreters of the law. They loved the law because they interpreted it. They figured out what is good, what is bad. All right? And in another part of the Bible, they are the ones who lose the law, all right, or who put the law and make it as tight as possible. Loosing and binding, all right? But that's another scripture. So, the Pharisees are there. They know the law. They interpret the law. Jesus was there, and here comes a sick man. A diseased man. A man. We all know that God created man. God loved mankind. Sons and daughters. That's what he wants us all to be. So here comes a sick man. And look at what Jesus said to the Pharisees. Is it lawful? Look at the word itself. Is it lawful? Because they were lawyers and Pharisees. They were interpreters of the law. They said, look, here is the law. You cannot heal on the Sabbath because you have to rest. So this sick man, well, I'm sorry that he's sick. If you want to heal him, do it tomorrow when it's not the Sabbath. And look at what Jesus says. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? What do you think, Pharisees? Your law, which you know very well, says no. But if you heal this man, if I were to heal this man, Jesus, if Jesus, was to heal this man, that means I'm breaking the law. So which do you think is more important, Pharisees? The man or your law? Which do you think is more important? What do you think the Pharisees would say? The law. My law. Of course, my law. Who cares about the man? Who cares about the woman? Who cares about the children? Who cares? Because my law is more important. It is the most important thing. Because why do I care about the suffering man? Why do I care about the suffering woman? It is all about my law. It's about me, you see. What do I do to maintain my position? You see, it's about me and who I am and what I do and what I represent. If that man is suffering, I don't care. Do you see how angry Jesus is at these people? And that's who Jesus is speaking to. The Pharisees and all those people who put down people and raise up the law. You, all these Jewish people, sick, poor, they deserve nothing. Because under the law, you must have done something. That's why you are in that position. You see, because God gave you this disease because you sinned. You did something bad. So that's why you are sick. So in fact, why should we even pray for you? Since God wanted you sick, so there you remain. And furthermore, it's a Sabbath. So why do I have to do anything for you? Look at verse 4. So now Jesus has asked the question, is it lawful to heal? Man versus law, who is more important? And look at them. They said they held their peace. Not one of them spoke up. And Jesus took the sick person and what? Healed him and then let him go. And then he answered the Pharisees, saying, which of you shall have an axe or an ox fallen into the pit, and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they could not answer him again to do these things, because they were selfish. If one of their animals fell into a hole, they would of course bring the animal out with no second thought, because the animal was valuable. But for that sick man or that sick woman has no value to them. That's what happens when you start to put the law at this level and human beings at this level. You start to believe that you are who you are because of the things that you do. And you have no compassion for anybody else. You start to believe that you actually are good. You are so good and so high that everybody else does not measure up. Why do they deserve healing? Why do they deserve to be helped? Why do they deserve Jesus? Why? I'm the good one. I deserve everything. They deserve nothing. I followed the law. I interpret the law. I do this for God. I am the one to be recompensed. Are you seeing the lead up to the story? I deserve it. I did it. Those people deserve nothing. All right? And now let's jump down to verse 12. Okay, where we started off. We're going to take a little while with chapter 14, all right? It's a very long chapter. It would probably take us a couple of weeks. Now let's read verse 12 in context. Then said Jesus also to him that bade him. Who do you think Jesus is talking to? Also, he said also to those that invited him to the house. There was the chief Pharisee and all the other Pharisees and lawyers. Do you see now how context comes into play? If you were to read this, and like I said, and you just take it for yourself, Jesus is not talking to you. Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. Jesus is saying to the Pharisees, okay, now that you got the context, now you can understand the whole thing better. All right? So Jesus now has already corrected the Pharisees. There's another part before this, which we'll deal with next week. But let's look at this part first. Then Jesus says to all the Pharisees, when you make a feast, now you can see the Pharisees, rich, prosperous, I make a feast. Man, I'm rich. I can give you not hot dogs, but when I make a feast, man, it's going to be a 10-course meal. You're going to sample the best of the best. Because I'm a rich man. I'm a rich woman. I'm a rich Pharisee. I'm very, very wealthy in this community and in the country. So when I make a feast, who do you think the Pharisees will invite? Well, they're going to invite their rich friends to come. I am Ezekiel. My name is Ezekiel. I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm going to throw a feast at my palace tonight. Who do you think I'm going to invite? I'm going to invite all my other millionaire friends, their wives, their relatives. They're all going to come dressed up nicely. They're all going to come up in their best camels. They're all coming out, with their best of everything, and they're all going to come into my palace, and we are going to have some fine dining together. See? They are all my friends. They are all my relatives. They are my brothers, my sisters. We are a rich family. All of us sticking close together. When you make a feast, so Jesus says, okay, Pharisees, you do not call your friends, your rich friends. Do not call your brothers and your rich relatives. Do not call your what? Come on. Rich neighbors. Don't call them. And here is the crucial part. And most people don't read this. Without this part, we do not know what this whole situation is about. Why don't you see what's wrong with calling them? Nothing wrong. But the wrong part is this. Lest they what? Also beat you again, and a recompense be made for you. So this is what it says. Jesus said, you invite your rich friends. Your rich friends, being equally rich, just like you, will invite you back. They can easily pay you back for this feast. How much is this feast worth? 10-course meal prepared by chefs. Let us say it costs $1,000, okay, in our everyday monetary term. $1,000 for this meal. They come in their limousines, they come with all their fine clothing, and they come to this feast. And you say, man, this feast costs $1,000 per head. But your friends, who are equally rich, will say, so what? You want $1,000 here? I can give you $1,000 from my pocket. It's chump change to me. It is nothing. Because I'm worth $100 million. And next week you can come to my feast in my palace because I have flown in chefs from other places, and it's going to cost me $2,000 a head. You see? You invite me to your feast, but I can pay you back. I can pay you back at this feast. But Jesus is saying, when you make a feast, and this is a feast which Jesus calls the people in. You see, if Jesus invites the people in, all right, Jesus says, I have made a feast. This is my feast. I invite you in. And suppose somebody comes and tells Jesus, well, thank you for inviting me. But man, Jesus, I am very rich in my works. Do you know how many good things I've done in this life, Jesus? I can pay you back for everything. You invite me, I invited this friend, that friend over my life. You know what I did down in the city. You know what I did for the poor people. Do you know what I did? Jesus, you invited me, and here is what I can do for you back. Jesus, I can recompense you everything that you did for me. You died on the cross for me. Do you know how many deaths I died for you? Jesus, do you know what I did for you in my lifetime? You died one death. I died 1,000 for you. And Jesus said, look at this. When you make a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind. Why? Why? The rich and the poor. One is not better than the other one. The poor is not better than the rich. The maimed is not better than the one who is not maimed. Whether a person can walk or is lame, one is not better than the other one. Here is why. Verse 14. And you shall be blessed. For they what? Cannot recompense you back. They cannot pay you back. When Jesus invites you in, you see, all those religious people will say, Jesus, I'm going to pay you back everything. But the poor, the ones say, Jesus, I have nothing to pay you. There's nothing I can do. You offered me this free gift. I come. But I have nothing to give you back. I cannot pay you anything. Because I don't have anything. Jesus. That's grace right there. I have nothing for you, Jesus, because I'm poor. That's the definition of poor. It's not about being monetarily poor. Can be a billionaire, but in his heart, he knows that there's nothing that he did to deserve salvation. How about the maimed, the lame? They said, look, Jesus, you call me. I cannot walk properly. I need your help. I don't walk in proudly into this feast. I don't walk in proudly to you, Jesus, and say, look at my body. It is perfect. Jesus, you'll be stupid not to choose me. The maimed, the lame, they need help. And of course, the best is the blind. Jesus, I don't even know where to go. Please lead me into this feast. I'm blind. I cannot see. I cannot find my way back home to you, Jesus. That's why you came for me. And you invited me into this feast. Luxurious feast. And I don't deserve anything. So the key word is this. They cannot recompense you. None of them could pay Jesus back for this feast. Because they have nothing of merit to pay Jesus back. So when Jesus was talking this thing, he was trying to show the Pharisees, not you, how salvation works. He was trying to show them because before this, in verse 8, there was a wedding. All right, there's another parable there, a wedding. When you make a wedding feast, who do you invite? You see, everything that Jesus said, in this case, was directed to the Pharisees. He says, you Pharisees, you are so rich in your works, you forget what salvation is. Salvation is a free gift. You do not pay Jesus back. The feast, the wedding feast of the Lamb, is a free gift for you. You come, but don't pay. Don't pay back anything. Because the moment you pay back, it is no longer grace. Once again, grace is the unmerited, favor of God to you. To you. To you. God says, I give this feast to you free. It doesn't cost you anything. I paid for it. I paid the full price for it. You just come. You come. You come. You come to this feast. Don't pay me back. And you see, that's the meaning of the scriptures. So do you like this meaning, or do you like the original meaning which I gave to you, where you take it out of context and then you say, hey, I'm just going to cook hot dogs for everybody? You see how scripture, so rich and so beautiful, can be taken out of context and made to seem so small, so insignificant, about me, about what I have to do, and then one day I get rewarded by Jesus. What has teaching become? What has scripture become? I don't know about you, but for me, I like to read the whole thing. And then when I see the beauty of what Jesus was explaining, I said, man, this Jesus, he is so good at explaining things to people, and so simple. So good and so simple. But to the Pharisees, they say, what is Jesus talking about again? Feast, invite the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind. I mean, this Jesus is an idiot. Nobody does that. But you see, when you miss the meaning of it, then you think like the Pharisees. But when you see what it actually means, then it's the beauty of a wedding feast, and Jesus says to you, you, with your personal name engraved on the card, you come. You come to me. And when you come, one day the doors will be shut, and we are going to feast together. That's what Jesus says. No price. Don't bring me your works. Don't bring me all of those things which other people or the Pharisees think is important. You come, and together, you and I will celebrate together for eternity.